to the Russian language course for beginners. Today we have lesson number 18. We have had already quite a few lessons behind. And we'll be able to hold on until that long together. Okay, let's see. Last time please give me a few seconds because something is wrong with my whiteboard. Again. Okay. These are the new words which we have learned in the previous few lessons, and you should take effort to memorize them. And today's lesson will be about the verbs. How we use verbs in the present tense in Russian language. Last time we have learned how to conjugate some of the verbs. I chose the most easy verbs that I could think of. And today we're going to share a few more details. Actually, these few lessons will be quite hard in terms of remembering new words. And learning many new words. So these are new verbs that we're going to learn today. All these verbs conjugate in exactly the same way, according to exactly the same formula as last time. So today you should be able to conjugate them without difficulty. Explain what those words are. The first three verbs are about food. And, they are made out of nouns. Maybe you already know those nouns. The first word would be завтрак, which means the breakfast. Завтрак. Обед means lunch. Ужин means dinner or supper. I know that there is something unclear in different countries. Lunch and supper have different meaning. In Britain, supper means lunch. The breakfast is something you eat in the morning. Завтрак is something you eat in the morning. Обед is something you eat in the afternoon. And ужин is the meal that you have in the evening. And out of these three nouns, we can create three verbs. And, also, please pay attention to different endings. For example, this ending at in many ways can create the verb out of a noun. To create infinitive form of a verb. Завтракать means to have breakfast. Breakfast. Обедать means to have lunch. Ужинать means to have dinner. So if you want to say, I'm having my breakfast, then you say, я завтракаю. Я завтракаю. We're going to make an exercise today about conjugating those verbs. However, we will not do it for all the verbs because you should have a grasp of those rules already. So to just choose one or two so that you can recall. Понимать means to understand. Покупать means to buy. Повторять means to repeat. Of course, always forget to put the accent, the stress. Играть. Приглашать. Приглашать. Менять. Играть. Понимать. Понимать. Играть means to play. Приглашать means to invite. Менять means to change. Okay, and maybe I can repeat again in case you don't know how to pronounce them one by one. Завтракать, обедать, ужинать, понимать, покупать, повторять, играть, приглашать, менять. So, 9 verbs. 9 new verbs. I don't know how you're going to remember, but I hope you can. Those are the most simple examples because they use the same formula. So let's try to conjugate the word понимать. Please send all the conjugations of this word to me in the chat. Those who can. From я until они. Я, ты, он, она, оно, мы, вы, они. In this order. Or you can choose any order. Up to you. I see the message. Yes. You can see somebody writing a message. I'm always happy to see messages in the chat. Maybe you have missed one letter. Shabazz, I think you're using a different word. It is not the word that you wrote. It doesn't mean understand, but it means to call or to have a read. Okay, great. So I see that you know how to conjugate it. And please note that the further we go with the Russian language, the more difficult it will become. For example, I think all the previous verbs that we have learned last lesson, they all have the ending at. However, today we have a different ending, the ending yet. You see, instead of the letter a, we have the letter ya. And also in this word. However, the formula still remains the same. You need to take away the last two letters and add the appropriate ending. Yeah, I have received, thank you guys for your feedback. Most of you, like 99% of you, gave a correct answer. So we're not gonna repeat this exercise for other verbs because I see you can remember it well. So this is just a homework for you to memorize those words. Maybe I should give you some time to write it down before I delete it. Or if you want, I can copy it to our chat. And then you can just copy and paste. Maybe it will be easier rather than writing it down on the paper. I'll give you a couple of minutes. In the meantime, I will take a few more words. So I believe already copied those verbs. I can continue to give you new information. So this продавать means to sell. Just now we learn how to say to buy, покупать. Продавать is the opposite. Давать, to give. Дать, to wait. Брать, to take. Жить, to live. To live. The word жить in Russian language has exactly the same meaning as in English. It means it has a few meanings. One of them means to reside or like to stay somewhere. I stay in New York. You can say I live in New York. Live and stay are synonyms. So it has this meaning. Or it means being alive. I live. It means I haven't died. I live. So the word жить is exactly the same as in English. It has these two meanings: to stay and to be alive. And why I chose those verbs is because the conjugation rules for those verbs are different. We need to use different endings. Now things are getting more and more complicated. And I will conjugate those verbs for you. I will take the word to sell as first. So, Продаем. Вы продаете. Они продают. Я продаю. Ты продаешь. Он продает. Мы продаем. Вы продаете. Они продают. And you see, what is the difference with the previous formula, with previous verbs? Actually, the formula is pretty similar. You see that for these two pronouns, the ending is exactly the same. For я and for они, the ending is exactly the same. But for the other pronouns, instead of the letter ye, we have the letter yo. I'll give you a comparison. Let's see. I'll give you a comparison with the previous. Last lesson we learned the word знаешь, and we had the letter ye everywhere, and here we had the letter yo. So this only one detail is different. Instead of ye, we have yo. So let's make an exercise. Please try to conjugate the word давать. Please conjugate it for me for all the pronouns. In the meantime, I'll give you the principle which endings you should put instead of t. Please take this word, давать, and conjugate it for me according to the new formula. I believe it shouldn't be too difficult. So far, I don't see any response. It means that you guys, either you guys are confusing. Okay. Wait, Cindy, maybe I have maybe my explanation was not good enough. In the previous words that we learned, yes, in the previous words that we learned, you should have taken only the last two letters t and replace it with the appropriate ending. But here you need to replace all four letters. So instead of replacing t, you must take away vat and put the appropriate ending. No, really no. You see that you must take not only t, you must take away, but you must take all the 4 letters, but you take away, and then you put the appropriate ending. Cindy, dayu is a correct form, but it should be for ya. Ya dayu. Ya dayu. Yeah, now I see why you guys are confused, because here the rules have changed. It's aligned, you are correct. I forgot to bring your attention. Here you must take away the entire ending. Emil, yep, that's correct. Marlene, your answer is also correct. Okay, so I have received a number of replies. I think it's enough. I will not wait for others. And, here we go on and we see some more difficult details. Let's go on and look at other verbs. The remaining 3 verbs, they don't follow the formula exactly. So previously, there was one formula, and I just told you use exactly the same formula, and you can do the conjugation. But for these 3 verbs, they sort of follow the same formula, but they have some different elements, and those elements you must memorize individually. You cannot sort of explain them with a formula. So let's look at the word ждать. Ждать means to wait. To wait. To wait. How do you conjugate it? I can conjugate it only because I'm a native speaker. So for me, it is automatic. Я жду. Я жду. Ты ждешь. Он, она, оно ждет. Мы ждем. Вы ждете. Они ждут. You see? Somehow it is similar, like you see similar endings as in the previous, as in the word давать, but you also see some differences. Instead of the letter U, you have letter U, and in the, instead of letter, and also in the word давать or продавать, we had to change, we had to take away 4 letters and add the ending. But in the word ждать, we only took away 3 letters. And unfortunately, I can't provide you a rule so that you can know in which case for which verb you need to take away 4 letters, and for which verb you need to take away 3 letters. Unfortunately, you must memorize it individually for every verb. There is a lot of memorization involved. Okay, let's go on and go for the next verb. Брать, to take. And again, it follows sort of the same formula, but there are some individual characteristics for this verb. Я беру, ты берешь, он, она, оно берет, мы берем, вы берете, они берут. I want to bring your attention to the difficulty that we experience here. For some reason, now we not only change the ending, so we change the ending, we take at, we take it away and put the appropriate ending for each pronoun, but also we have added another letter to the root. You see, in the original form, there are only 2 consonants, br, br, but here we have another vowel. And again, I believe that unfortunately there is no rule that will tell you that you must add another letter. In order to know how to conjugate it, you need to know about this particular verb, how to conjugate it. And now I believe I made you very confused. Therefore, please ask me questions. I'll wait for you for 1 or 2 minutes to give you an opportunity to ask me questions. Because if you are not confused, I will not believe you. I will not believe you. No questions? Really no questions? Don't want to ask me anything? Would you consider the last 3 verbs irregular verbs? You can probably say that they are irregular, but the number of irregular verbs in Russian is big. It is not like only 1%. Я беру. You can't say я бру. You can't say я бру. Нет. You must say я беру. Yes, Cindy, this is something that doesn't have a rule. Like every verb has its own specific way of conjugation. In the previous verbs it was я, but for these particular verbs it is U. Actually no. Let's say in the word продаю, даю. Я даю. So in the verb давать, the ending is U, and я беру, the ending is U. And there is no rule, or at least there is no rule that I'm aware of that would tell you why instead of U, you must put U. Therefore, for this particular verb, беру, you must remember that instead of U, you must put U. You can maybe say this is an exception, but the number of exceptions in Russian language is big. So guys, please write it down, or maybe I can copy it for you. Because you will need to memorize it. Otherwise, you will have. Yeah, this is a feature of Russian language. The rules are not 100%. They are maybe only 90%, but there are many, many exceptions. And many things you must remember individually for every particular word. Okay. A lot of practice is required to learn Russian language. Let's go on for the next. Yeah, I put these three verbs at the very end because they behave strangely. You know, the previous verbs, they could be described by a formula which is consistent, okay, but for these ones, yeah, I think that Emil proposed we call them irregular verbs. Maybe this is a correct way to call it. Жить, to live. Я живу. Ты живешь. Он живет. Мы живем. Вы живете. Они живут. And again, irregularity which cannot be explained by rules. So there's a typo, should be only one shot. It is so different, and here I want to bring your attention to one difference. In infinitive, you see the letter T, but in other forms you see the letter B. It cannot be explained by rule. It means you must remember that for this particular verb, you must change the form in this way. People explain why Russian language is so different from other languages. You know, in other languages, rules can explain much more. The number of exceptions in other languages like English or Latin or German number of exceptions are less. And in Russian, the number of exceptions is bigger, much bigger in other languages. People explain it by saying that Russian language is younger, considered to be younger than other European languages. For example, English language is so old, it has like more than 1,000 years. And then all those exceptions, they slowly disappear. The language simplifies as it develops. But Russian language is a relatively young language, therefore it has a lot of irregularities. Okay, so since now we almost used up the time, then I will briefly tell you what your homework will be. This I want to copy. Please write down the conjugations of those irregular verbs. Okay. So this your homework will consist of two parts. These verbs that we have learned in the beginning of the lesson, you only need to memorize their meaning because you already know how to conjugate them. So just memorize what those words mean. And for these 5 verbs that we learned in the second part of the meeting of the lesson, you must write down conjugations. I hope that you wrote down how they conjugate. If you don't remember how they conjugate, please send me a message. I'll write it to you in a private message. Just write it down, yeah, because it will help you to remember how to conjugate these particular verbs. And now I see that we have only a few seconds left, so I want to say thank you to everybody who is here. I know that today's lesson was challenging and scary. So I'm really appreciating that you're putting efforts in learning our difficult language. And next lesson will be on Monday. So I wish everybody a good weekend. See you on Monday. Bye-bye.
До свидания.
До свидания. Пока.
Очень трудно сегодня.
Yeah, I believe it is. I believe it is really good.
Хорошо. Да.